To my friends for Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes, he referenced, as many have tonight, the role of SNC-Lavalin's lawyer, who was referenced, and of course this is somewhat in the nature of hearsay, because it was something said by the clerk of the Privy Council to our former Minister, former Attorney General, former Minister of Justice. But the claim, Frank Iacobucci is not a shrinking violet. Frank Iacobucci is playing an interesting role here, and I wonder if my friend finds it curious in any way that SNC-Lavalin's lawyer was the choice of the Prime Minister to run the Indigenous consultations in the repairing of the flawed consultations on the Kinder Morgan pipeline, and he is still playing that role while he is also SNC-Lavalin's lawyer.
Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the question. And, you know, nothing at this point is surprising me, but I continue to be more and more concerned with the tangled web that the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office have weaved on this issue. And the intervention and involvement by the lawyers of SNC-Lavalin and their attempts to intervene with the Director of Public Prosecutions through the Attorney General is very troubling. And I believe that the issue raised by my colleague should be the subject of that RCMP investigation as well.
The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Turn to my honourable colleague across the way. What I would say is this, that the patterns and the culture of the power brokers in this town have not changed all that much, although the faces have changed. And there is an unfortunate, and we must get to the bottom of it and change the culture, tendency to decide in powerful organizations like PCO and PMO that if there's a problem in the way, we can find a workaround. If there's a law we don't like, we can skirt it. If there's problems of ethics, well, maybe we can write some op-eds. I don't find that the culture has changed from the Harper years till now. And I think we have an opportunity now to root out a big part of the problem, which is political, but it's also that the senior civil service in this country has become far too political. And I would ask that in this House, in this emergency debate, we consider that the testimony of Michael Warnock and the testimony of the former Attorney General provide a contrast in which she has all the credibility.
Just for the record, is that a question?
I would just ask
Member to respond whether it's a question or a comment. That's why it's called questions and comments.
Okay. I wasn't sure if the member, the colleague, wanted an answer from me. I absolutely agree that we have to always strive to do better as parliamentarians and to improve the transparency in our way of legislating and governing. But I still don't understand what is wrong with something that was not illegal, that was absolutely in the nature of a law that had been passed in the previous budget. I really don't understand what's the big deal about this. That's my other comment.
Question. I was watching the members opposite, and I just wanted to say, if he noticed someone laughing, and I'm not saying he didn't, but I certainly didn't, and I felt it was important to say that the members opposite appear to be taking, and the Liberal bench is taking this matter as seriously as we do, although I deeply disagree with the tact they're taking. I don't see laughter. To my honourable friend from Caribou Prince George, does he agree with me that although, and I think that the former Attorney General answered my question clearly at committee, that she did not think the criminal code had been transgressed. But until we get to the bottom of this, I think it's an open question. So I don't allege criminality in this matter, but I think it remains a possibility. And I'd like to see the RCMP take over an investigation. I disagree with my friend, the Parliamentary Secretary. The Ethics Commissioner has a very narrow mandate, and it certainly doesn't allow the Ethics Commissioner to look into things other than a member of Parliament's personal conduct for personal reward. These are public policy issues and the Constitution, and they require, I believe, an independent investigation by the RCMP.
Member for Caribou Prince George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank our our colleague for her question. Two things on the questions that she said. The former Attorney General said she felt that the criminal code had not been broken, but I will offer this. It was not broken because of her insistence and her fortitude in standing tall against this corrupt power. She's the only thing that stopped the law from being broken at that point. And again, as I brought earlier, or mentioned earlier on, there is a constitutional law that that I feel was broken on that, Mr. Speaker. And going back to the other comment was an RCMP investigation. I absolutely believe that that is something that should be done. Our honourable colleague across the way wants to deflect and make this about jobs and pit one part of our country against another, just because we are standing up for what is right. And it doesn't go with their narrative across the way. He knows very well that the Ethics Commissioner is lacking that investigatory teeth, that metal that can look at criminality, whether it's constitutional or the criminal code. We have put a letter forward, our leader has put a letter forward to the RCMP calling on the RCMP to do an investigation under sections 139.2 and 423.1. We believe that the criminal code was broken, and that therefore the RCMP should put forth an investigation immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And my honourable friend from Perth, Wellington, I'm struggling with trying to reconcile the behaviour, and I'm grateful that he raised the question of how a nonpartisan clerk of Privy Council is supposed to conduct him or herself. I used to work many years ago, 1986 to 88, I worked in the Office of the Federal Minister of Environment in a majority progressive conservative government under Brian Mulroney. The behavior of federal senior civil servants in those days bears no relationship whatsoever to the kind of thuggery that was reported yesterday. But it isn't that new to see this kind of contamination of our federal civil service. It's been coming on for some time. And I wonder if the honourable member for Perth Wellington would agree with me that we have a deeper cultural problem to restore a truly independent, expert, nonpartisan civil service.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the member from Saanich Gulf Islands for her question. I had the great honor and privilege to study under Mr. Arthur Kruger, a man who many may not know, but was considered the Dean of Deputy Ministers, someone of the highest regard, highest esteem. And I think if he were alive today, he would be disgusted by the actions that are undertaken today. Integrity, respect, nonpartisanship. Those are the values of our public service. Those are the values that we as Canadians expect, we as parliamentarians expect from a nonpartisan public service, from a public service that is fearless in its advice, but loyal in its implementation. And unfortunately, the clerk of the Privy Council has failed in those duties, and he must resign.
Hear, hear.
Just a perfect segue for not putting words in someone's mouth. I know the honourable member was probably trying to paraphrase my question yesterday in the Justice Committee, but the way I put it was very clear. Was there a violation of the criminal code? I did not, as it was reported here, ask if anything illegal had transpired. I agree with the interpretation of the honourable member from Wellington Halton Hills. So I just want to be clear on the record of what I asked the former Attorney General and how she answered.
Member for Surrey Centre.
Let me just say thank you to the member from Saanich Gulf Islands. If the member felt that the criminal code had been violated, if the member felt that any law had been breached, then the Attorney General had the duty to go before the RCMP and make that complaint herself. That's her duty. She is morally obligated to do so, and she has never done so. And even when she was asked, she said none of that was crossed. That's her job. If the Chief Justice, the Chief Justice Minister of this country and the Attorney General thinks a law has been breached, then it's her job, it's her prerogative to make sure that it is enforced.